Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be looking at making some replacement bionic arm chips for a vintage Kenner $6 million man doll. Now the arm chips are a pretty cool feature on Steve Austin. You can roll up the skin on his right arm to reveal two bionic chips that can be removed, and because they can be removed they can also be lost. So quite often if you're going to try and collect a vintage doll like this, the bionic chips will be missing. Now there are a few people out there who do make replacements of these bionic chips, but I thought it would be quite fun to have a go at making some myself, so that's exactly what we're going to do today. Now with the missing lower arm bionic chip, I thought I would try something new, which was to have a go casting one in resin. I've seen other people do this and I thought it would be a fun thing to learn, and sort of this would be an ideal opportunity to give it a go. The upper arm chips always seem to be much easier to find. I think that's because quite often people didn't roll the arm skin back all the way, and so these chips are often still stuck in place, but these lower ones, which are a little bit smaller, are often missing. And in fact I do have one in my other sort of Steve Austin doll, so I'm going to be using that as the basis to make the new one. The first thing we've got to do is actually make a mould of it, and I'm going to be doing that using blue stuff. In fact I already have done that. Blue stuff is a thermoplastic, so you put it into hot water, it softens, and you can then make all sorts of moulds and shapes out of it. I've shown it quite a few times on my channel and it does work really well, and I thought it would be an ideal thing to do for making the mould of this. So I've done that, and here is the mould. In fact all the pieces are still stuck in the mould. Now what I've actually done is I've got a flat piece of plastic, and then underneath that is the chip, because what I want is a sort of flat surface on the back, so when I pour the resin in I know where the sort of the back of it is and how level it's going to be. And I thought if I did that just with the thermoplastic it would be a bit sort of messy, so by putting another piece of plastic behind the chip it should give me a nice flat surface. So if we take this out we'll see what the mould looks like. So there you can see that is the flat piece of plastic where it's got a bit of paint on it, but you can see the idea. Basically there's the chip. When I take that chip out, we'll then be able to pour resin into that area, and as long as it goes up to this sort of the flatness of that surface, I should get quite a nice finish to the chip. So let's just take this chip out as well. And there we go. So that's quite a nice looking cast. It looks quite smooth. I can't see any sort of issues with that. That is the chip we are casting. So I'm going to be casting this in clear resin. Now I have only done this once before off camera as a quick test, and the results were pretty pleasing. So I'm hoping we can do this again. But yeah, let's start the process. The first thing though was to get this mould, and yeah, I think that looks quite nice. It's quite neat, and yeah, it's a good starting point. So this is the resin I'm using. I bought this off eBay. It's a two-part resin. You basically mix it 2 to 1. So we have the resin and we have the hardener here. So we've got 100 grams of the resin and 50 grams of the hardener. So we put 2 lots of this into 1 lot of that. I only need a very small amount of this. You can measure it. It comes with a full set of instructions, which I've got here, and it tells you how to mix it. So it's a sort of 2 to 1 ratio, and it's got it in various weights, but we're really going to be mixing a very small amount of it. So I'm actually going to be doing this by eye. I'm just going to sort of eye up 2 to 1 is a ratio in here. I've made a second mould as well, because I happen to have some more glue stuff. So I've made a second version of the mould, so we can do 2 at one time. This takes 24 hours to set, so you've got to be very patient, but yeah, I think it should work quite nicely, and judging by my tests it will. So I'll just put these in pots so that I can get them nice and level. I'm now going to do the 2 to 1 ratio, mix it up with a screwdriver and very carefully pour it into these moulds, and then wait. So that is my guess of a 2 to 1 ratio. I'm sure you could do this a lot more scientifically, but I know my scales don't measure these small amounts, and I think I just have to guess with it. Last time I did this, it worked really quite well, and I'm just hopeful. If it doesn't, I'll mix this again. As you can see, I only need a very tiny amount of it, but I think that is about a 2 to 1 ratio. I've now given that a pretty good mix. There's a few little bubbles in it. This didn't seem to be a problem last time. Over the 24 hours of sort of letting it set, the bubbles just disappeared. They floated to the top. As I say, these are very small things that we're casting. So yeah, we'll just sort of see how that goes. But you can see there's a few bubbles in there. I don't think it will matter. Now is the tricky bit. I'm going to try and get these nice and level because we obviously want this to be quite level. Maybe that's not the right dish to put that in. Let's try a different one. Yeah, that one's better. I'm just using those dishes just to make sure everything is level. I'm now going to very carefully pour this into the mould. I actually don't want it to sort of spread out too much, so I'm going to try and keep it just in that middle piece, but we'll see how we can get on. I'd rather that we had a nice flat surface on the back that didn't need filing or sanding or anything like that, so let's just try. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that looks quite nice. They certainly have sort of filled up to the edge. They're not slipping over the sides at all. So I'm now just going to leave those. As I say, this takes 24 hours. I've just got to be patient. I'm going to put these to the side, do something else, and we'll come back and see what they look like tomorrow. It's now a day later and everything looks like it has set quite nicely. I can feel that the resin has actually set pretty solidly. Both of them look like they've worked. So really the only thing to do is to pop these out of the mould and see what they look like. So you can see that one pops out quite easily. Just pull that out. Well, that doesn't look too bad at all. There's a few little areas around the edge I can see where we need to sort of trim off some of the resin, but the overall effect looks really quite nice. I don't think it will fit quite snugly in there at the moment just because we need to trim off some of the resin, but it's really very clear. There's not a sign of a bubble in that one, so yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Let's look at this one. Just push that one out as well. There we go. And again, a lovely clear cast. That's looking very good. Again, a few little sort of errors on the edges of it, but nothing I don't think we can't sort of solve with a bit of filing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some files out. I'll trim these edges down and sort of file them a bit, and yeah, we'll see if we can get that one to fit. The surface I didn't want to sort of do any filing to was the top surface and the bottom surface, because I'm going to stick something on the bottom, so you want that as nice and flat as possible, and those look really very good. So yeah, let's do a bit of filing and see if we can get that to fit in the slot there. With just a small amount of filing around the edges, I've actually made both of these chips now fit quite snugly into Steve Austin's arms. You can see that one fits really very nicely. The other one is a little bit too thick. I think I possibly put too much resin in it. So when we push this into the arm, you can see it's raised up slightly. And because I don't want to sand the bottom of this, it's going to be a little bit proud. But the overall effect is really very good. You can see that this is a very nice clear cast. If I bring in the original one here, you can see it does match quite nicely. So I'm very happy with how that has worked. But we're still missing one thing, which is that all of this, sort of the artwork on the back of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some images of these original chips into Photoshop and make myself a new version of this artwork that we can then attach onto the back of this chip and put that in place. So let's make that artwork. Right, well, that didn't take too much time. As you can see here, I printed out a few of them onto a bit of paper. I've actually just done a quick test, which is why there's one missing here. This is just normal printer paper. There's nothing special about it, because to attach this to the back of the little resin cast that we've made, we've got to stick it on somehow. And so the actual paper part doesn't need to be anything particular. We're going to be sticking this over the top like that, as you can see. So I'm going to bring in an original chip here, just so I know which way round this artwork goes. You can see there's all sorts of little dials and bits, and the dial needs to be on sort of the bottom right hand corner. If we turn that around, it needs to be that way round. I think that should work really quite well. So how are we going to stick these onto this piece of resin that we've cast? And the answer is double-sided tape. You can buy double-sided tape from most places. I picked this up off eBay, I think, but many craft shops and sort of news agents will sell something like this. So I'm going to just cut off a strip of double-sided tape like that. And I'm actually going to stick it right over the top of this artwork, so we can't see it anymore. So if I stick it like that, and then I can take the backing of the tape off, and you can see that the tape is so clear that you can actually see the artwork through it. So if I get my new little resin cast and carefully line this up over the top of the artwork, like so, and I'll push that down. I can then just take my knife and cut around the edge of this. There we go. What we should be left with is a chip now with the artwork in the background, and it doesn't look too bad at all. If we compare that to the original one, you can see that's a pretty good recreation of the chip. The PDF file for this is going to be available on toy-polloi.com for free, so go and grab that there if you want to do this exact same thing. But let's try this chip in Steve Austin's arm. You can see, look at that, really very convincing indeed. And if we fold the skin down, you can see it's hidden and fits perfectly. So it's only not the easiest of things to do, but I didn't find this resin cast in too much trouble. I just bought the cheapest sort of craft resin that I could find on eBay. There are lots of different ones, so I don't really know much about which ones are best and which ones are the worst. I just grabbed what was the cheapest. There are plenty of videos online of other people doing casting, so I would recommend watching a few of those to see if they have any recommendations. But for me, this cheap resin has really worked very nicely, and I've ended up with a really nice looking arm chip that fits snugly in Steve Austin's arm. So yeah, that's a very satisfying little project. And there we have it. My Steve Austin now has a replacement Bionic arm chip. You can use exactly the same process to make one of the larger chips, but in this video I've only shown you the smaller chip. The file, as I say, is available for free from toy-polloi.com, so go and check that out. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.